tales for little readers. Hello, boys and girls. Today we are going to read the story, The Prince and the Pauper. Now open your book to the beginning of the story. Just remember to turn the page when you hear this sound. Get ready. Let's go. The Prince and the Pauper. Once upon a time, a boy named Tom walked by the palace and saw Prince Edward. The prince looked just like him. Prince also saw Tom and was very surprised that they looked alike. He invited Tom to come to the palace. Soon they became good friends. Prince Edward wanted to play a trick on people, so he exchanged clothes with Tom. Even the king, who was very sick, thought Tom was his son. When the guards saw Edward, they thought he was Tom and asked him to leave. Edward told them he was the prince, but they didn't believe him. A few days later, the king died. Edward couldn't get into the palace. He saw Tom at the king's funeral and cried out to Tom, but Tom didn't hear him. Edward kept yelling and telling people that he was the real prince. People were angry with him because he was so loud at the king's funeral. Tom! Tom! This is Edward! The guards grabbed Edward, but Tom said to them, "Release him! He is the real king!" "I'm so glad you came. I almost became a fake king," Tom said to Edward. Finally, Edward was crowned and became a king. Okay, just follow me and repeat after me. The Prince and the Pauper.
The Prince and the Pauper.
Once upon a time,
Once upon a time,
a boy named Tom
a boy named Tom
walked by the palace
walked by the palace
and saw Prince Edward.
and saw Prince Edward.
The prince looked just like him.
The prince looked just like him.
The prince also saw Tom.
The prince also saw Tom
and was very surprised
and was very surprised
that they looked alike. He invited Tom to come to the palace. Soon they became good friends. Prince Edward wanted to play a trick on people. So he exchanged clothes with Tom. Even the king, who was very sick, thought Tom was his son. When the guards saw Edward, they thought he was Tom. And asked him to leave. Edward told them he was the prince. But they didn't believe him. A few days later, the king died. Edward couldn't get into the palace. He saw Tom at the king's funeral and cried out to Tom. But Tom didn't hear him. Edward kept yelling and telling people that he was the real prince. People were angry with him because he was so loud at the king's funeral. Tom, this is Edward. The guards grabbed Edward. But Tom said to them, Release him. He is the real king. I'm so glad you came. I almost became a fake king. Tom said to Edward. Finally, Edward was crowned. And became a king.